Alright everyone, Infowars was mass deplatformed some time ago. Now supposedly the legacy media immediately afterwards took a victory lap and said, oh, Infowars is done for now. Alex Jones will sink into the dustbin of history and nobody will know who he is all of a sudden. And they were gloating like, not that many months ago, oh, circulation of Infowars material, supposedly, this is a supposedly, is down. Now, though, the New York Times running a hit piece on Infowars. Now, think about it this way. The legacy media wants money. They run things that they think are interesting. Why would they even talk about Infowars if it were dying and nobody cared about it? If nobody cared about the issue of Alex Jones? Oh, because this hit piece is going to be popular. It's going to get circulated, and not just by the people who realize that Alex Jones is not far out there, he's not a terrible person, and he's not the one-dimensional caricature that you get in this article. You can tell that this article is fake because it portrays one-dimensionality. I've spoken of this at length. One-dimensionality is a phenomenon within propaganda, wherein something is attempted to be branded either as purely good or purely evil. Like Trump, the way he's handled by, let's say the way that Solon talks about Trump. They admit no positives to him. They will simply omit mention of anything that makes him look good. So they're not going to talk about the jobs report except in the context of, well, some of that was seasonal work, it's part-time work, it's shitty burger flipping jobs, Orange Man bad. Or you'd think about Drudge before maybe recent events, piling praise on the right wing, never really questioning it. So some scandal involving a Republican is either spit shined and painted over a little bit, or it's not talked about at all. This happens all the time. The reality that people witness is not real. It's just optics. It's Shakespearean. Their minds have been twisted around to the point where they're incapable in many cases of admitting that something could be good or could be bad or could be problematic sporadically. Now, they think about some corporate brand that they really, really like. It's like Apple fans, the Apple cult. They go into Starbucks with their shitty iPad and their stupid Che Guevara beret on and start writing their fucking slam poetry. They would never admit that Tim Cook is a shit-fuck billionaire. They would never admit that Apple is a terrible company that enslaves people. If you mention it to them, they'll change the subject. There's a reason for that, because it breaks their worldview. Anyway, this hit piece insinuates that Alex Jones is a deeply violent, extremely disturbed man. He's constantly drunk, like total binge drinker. He drinks and drives and does crazy shit, forces people to hit him, randomly goes crazy. It's one-dimensionality. The entire article, and it's a fairly long one. Just read it, link in the description. Archived, of course, so you're not getting any clicks. By the way, I'm part of the Archive Everything movement. If it can't be put through archive.today, or the web page, the Wayback Machine, and turn into an archive, and then run through tinyURL in the latter case, of course. They really need to be less obtuse. They should fix URL shortening into their site itself, preferably. Then I won't use it as a source. I'll go bye-bye. RCP's pissing me off because now for some of their pages, sporadically it'll come up and say, you're using adblock, or turn it off, or fucking whitelist us, or buy a subscription. It's not gonna happen, dude. I like RCP, but don't fucking jerk me around. It's not gonna happen, dude. The ad-driven internet's stupid. Crowdfund RCP. I'll give you $1 a year. Don't worry about it. Anyway, it's one-dimensionality. That's why we know that it's fake. Because it says not one thing. It doesn't portray Jones as having any redeeming features. Now you can say, well, Alex Jones is a bad character. Okay, believe he's a conspiracy theorist, he's extreme or whatever. There is no human being who has ever walked the earth who has no redeeming characteristics. If you can find a human being about which you don't believe there are any, you have been brainwashed. It doesn't matter who it is. It's Stalin. Stalin killed 15 million people. Mao Zedong or something. Pol Pot. I'm sure that if I searched long enough, I'd find something about Pol Pot that was redeemable. Yeah, he had people killed in front of him, drank out of their skulls, piled them up into little hills and thought this was great decoration. Yeah, he ruined Cambodia completely and killed millions of people. Did he like dogs? Did he like writing poetry? Did he like growing asparagus? Something about him was at least kind of neutral. There's no such thing as one-dimensionality. It simply doesn't exist within the human lexicon. When you see it crop up, it is propaganda. 100% of the time, no exceptions. So, do I believe this story? No. No, I don't. I think this is a hit piece. I think what's happened is that Alex Jones, in the background, is still growing. Infowars is beginning to recover. Look at Alt Tech, BitChute. How many subscribers does it have on BitChute? BitChute's rapidly taking off. They got a Minds present, so they're on Gab. They've still got their own website. They're streaming live on BitChute at this point, although that needs tinkering because nobody appears to be paying attention to it most of the time. Everything is going along fine. They're still there. As far as I know, they haven't had a mass layoff. That's interesting because I think the New York Times has. See, here's the secret. They're still afraid of Alex Jones. They're probably afraid that in a few years he'll climb back on the mainline platforms too, because some of them will have gone the way of the dinosaur. Some of them will have stopped censoring things because the moral panic will begin to recede, as they always do. Prediction. Within the next 5 years at least, moral panic will recede. You'll have probably a pro-liberty movement online or something to replace the current hardline corporatism. They're afraid of him. They're still losing. The New York Times is still shrinking. Their viewership is declining. Well, at some point, even if Alex Jones isn't on YouTube, isn't on Facebook, isn't allowed to be on these mainline platforms, at some point he still has more fans than they do, regardless of that fact. Why would they risk giving more exposure to someone who they're claiming openly has receded into the background and is no longer within the mainstream and nobody cares about him? Why would they risk running a hit piece by a so-called former employee in order to do this? Because it's juicy, because it'll get them clicks, it'll make them money, and it'll give them attention. It stirs people up a bit. It stirs people up, oh, evil Alex Jones, oh my god, I always knew he was evil, he even drinks vodka and drives around. I don't believe that. And let's say for a second, arguing devil's advocate, let's say I believe some of what this says. Okay, Alex Jones drives his sports car around drunk. Alex Jones has staffers punch him in the chest because he just randomly gets red in the face and goes crazy. Alex Jones throws shit around, yells at people when they don't do the right thing. Alex Jones is a tough boss to work for. What the fuck does that have to do with the entertainment value of Infowars? The fuck does that have to do with whether a person does or does not watch the final product? Look at the shit that goes on. Yeah, New York Times, really a great place to work. Dude, sex abuse allegations up the ass. People saying their editors are fucked up. Editors getting fired. The final product falling apart. The New York Times has problems. I don't see anybody, and if Infowars runs something about the New York Times falling apart, that's a conspiracy theory. Evil, bad faith Alex Jones is trying to tar the press because he feels jealous or something like that. No, content creation is where it's at. Infowars is better than the New York Times. You don't have to believe half of what Alex Jones says. He even openly admits that a lot of it's hyperbolic and it's to draw people in order to inform them about the real news. It's infotainment. What? Let me ask you something. For those that don't know anything about the history of news, of journalism in the modern sense, shock jock radio, was it not a way to get people in and get them to listen to more serious stories and interviews and things like that? Of course it was. Of course it was. It was openly billed as this, and it still worked. Fox News took the entire news world, in the cable sense, this is many decades ago now, quite some time, shines up the format, puts in a bunch of sweeping lights and jump cuts and dramatic music, and some hyperbole, and gets people riled up and has them yell at each other. People loved it. It's like adding a little bit of Jerry Springer or a little bit of Howard Stern to the cable late-night news, and it made it better, which is why Fox is winning in the cable wars. And then everyone else eventually adapted that sort of content. People at the New York Times and MSNBC and CNN are trying to steal the format of Infowars. They're becoming more like tabloids. Now, they're hesitant, they're very resistant to doing this. But you see, even with Drudge recently, might have even changed ownership, we're not 100% sure. Drudge was very dry, very rigorous, especially with regards to its tweets, and now is cracking one-liners like saying Maxwell Ghislaine, ha ha ha, and making boomer jokes and stuff, retweeting other news handles directly instead of linking back to Drudge itself. Everything it's doing is different now. They had a meeting and they said, well, we need to be more like the new press. Infowars. The Blaze, ironically enough, giving credit where it's due to an organization that's also in decline, I believe, at the moment. Maybe Crowder and some others aside. Not a big fan of Glenn Beck, let's just put it that way. People on YouTube, YouTubers. Why do you think there's an active effort right now by corporations to astroturf YouTube by taking some decently good-looking, 20-year-old, some college kid, and they give him a budget and a camera and say, go do funny things and give us product placement. Here's 50 grand. Why do you think YouTube is offering people 100 grand or more B-list celebrities to make a YouTube channel? In an astroturfing attempt. It's an attempt to push real independent content creators aside. One by one, the larger ones get banned, the smaller ones get algorithmically demoted, and everyone's happy. At the end of the day, the corporatists get their paycheck. It's still not, though, working because alt tech was invented, number one. Alt tech exists. Blockchains and crypto have begun to exist. That's a real wrench in their plans. And content creators simply have more engaged fan bases. What they didn't expect is those fan bases to be able to migrate from one place to another as easily as they appear to do. It's just like the Sargon effect. Sargon gets banned from Patreon, thousands of people leave the platform, causing the amount of money other people are making attendant to that to decline. They start looking for alternatives. The alternatives grow. This has happened multiple times, cross-platform. No, I don't believe for a second that Alex Jones is as one-dimensional as this article portrays, because it would be impossible for him to be like that. You would have to assume that he was literally a slovenly, schlubby, scummy man. He doesn't do anything good for anyone. He's egotistical and rancid and sexually depraved and drunk all the time and a horrible, violent individual. How many people have you met that are genuinely like that? Not many. Unless you presuppose Jones to be like that, the article itself makes no sense, and it provides no evidence. This is someone who says, I worked for Jones, and this is what I saw. He was constantly drunk. He was constantly making body jokes. He was physically violent. He would throw things around. He's a terrible boss. He's inept. He's paranoid and insane. This is just what you would expect in a normal New York Times article, a hit piece against any independent creator. And so I claim that it is propaganda and it is largely false. If there's any truth to it, it's a half-truth buried in the context. And it doesn't even matter. That's about all. Peace out.